I just read out the following statement. Anyone is welcome to record this meeting, provided they do not disturb the conduct of the meeting. More information is available in the agenda. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being filmed and made available to view in live and archive from via the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, it is possible that the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, it is recommended you make a member of staff aware, and they will direct you where to sit. The Westgate Garden gates are locked after sunset, and members of the public should leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Should the fire alarm sound, please leave through the nearest safe exit. The assembly point is outside Café des Amis. Thank you. Andrew, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Lord Mayor, we have apologies from Councillors Bothwell and Ian Stockley.
Thank you. Can I now
Sorry, Lord Mayor.
invite...
Can I also add Councillor Jupe to that list, please? Apologies.
Councillor?
Jupe.
Oh. Item 2, can I invite Councillors Baldock to make a statement, any declarations of interest by members of their respective groups.
Thank you, Lord
Councillor
Mayor.
Baldock?
Any declarations of interest made by members of the Labour Group are declared again by those present at this meeting.
Can I ask Councillor Saul?
Same for the Lib Dem group.
Councillor Carnac?
Same for the Conservative group.
And Councillor Turnbull?
Same for the Green Group.
And is there any other members who'd like to make any other declaration at this point? No. So there are no petitions or questions from the public for this meeting. We'll have one sad announcement, and that I've announced the sad news that we learned of the death yesterday of former Lady Mayoress Sue Westgate. Sue was Lady Mayoress in 2019-20, alongside her husband Terry, who was Lord Mayor that year. Together, they attended hundreds of civic events across the district and made for a brilliant team. I know all our thoughts will be with Terry and all of Sue's family and friends at this very sad time. Thank you. So I would now like to invite the leader and cabinet members to make any announcements they may have. Joint Chief Executives, do you have any? It seems funny when you say joint.
No, thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So I've been informed that the group leaders will use the lectern to give their budget speeches. So it's all prepared for you. So I'd like to invite Councillor Mike Soul, Cabinet Member for Finance, to deliver his budget priority speech. You have up to 10 minutes, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Let me start by checking my budget notes to make sure I get this right this year. Firstly, everything that is bad because of the previous administration, the previous government, the current government, COVID, Trump, Putin, the cyber attack, or Liz Truss. Delete as appropriate. Everything good in this budget is down to the administration. And it also tells me here to make sure I bamboozle you with a few technical phrases to make sure that I sound like I know what I'm talking about. And then finally, I might well end up with a famous quote just to show that I'm quite well read. Well, we could do that, but we might like to do things slightly differently this time. But I might still try to squeeze a quote in at the end. So I'd like to start off by talking about the budget setting process and take you right back to this time last year. As you may recall, since being in this role, I've sought to engage widely with councillors of all parties. This is a budget that we should all be able to influence. Last year, Councillor Joe Howells put forward an amendment on behalf of the Conservative group about garage rents. It was a sensible suggestion, but I had a number of questions that I needed to be answered before I was prepared to support it on the night. Now, particularly in the role of Cabinet Member for Finance, I need to understand the impact of changes to the whole budget, and these are not always initially obvious. Now, whilst that amendment wasn't passed, after that meeting, we undertook a review and a benchmarking exercise on our garage rents, so that we've been able to come forward in this budget with increased charges to reflect the market price, which will not only provide more funds for garage maintenance, but also help fund other expenditure within the housing revenue account. Now, I was pleased to be able to have conversations with the Green and Conservative group leaders last year about the draft budget and hopefully answer any questions that they had. Now, the budget making process, especially this meeting tonight, can be a bit of theatre. I think that every budget I've been involved in, the process is pretty much that the opposition put forward amendments, the administration reject them, and everyone gets a few minutes of fame in the local press saying how wonderful they are and what complete rotters everyone else is. Now, it may be a bit of fun, but it doesn't serve our residents well. We can and should do better than that. There are, as I have explained though, genuine reasons why it is difficult to accept a budget amendment on the night, which is why I asked the leaders of the Conservative group and Green group to consider sharing their budget amendments with me in advance of this meeting. I'm pleased that Councillor Carnac took up that offer on behalf of the Conservative group, and last week we were able to discuss the merits of their budget amendments, and I had the time to discuss things with the relevant portfolio holder, the leader and officers. Now, I'm not going to steal Rachel's thunder. I look forward to hearing the amendment and the reasons for it in due course, but I hope the Council will see that by engaging in this way, we serve our residents better. District councils find themselves in a position where they must remain flexible and adaptable to constant change. There are limited new financial resources on the horizon in a period of great uncertainty in terms of financial planning. As such, the 25-26 budget is based on a continuation of service levels with reasoned assumptions in relation to pay and price inflation, borrowing costs and known income pressures. I look forward to the prospect of a 3-year settlement from government in the future. We know that Canterbury City Council will not exist in a few years' time. In some ways, that puts a whole new light on financial planning for the medium and long term. And it also focuses attention more sharply on the short term and what we can achieve for our district over the next 2 or 3 years. You know that my approach to all matters has been to be as open-minded to new ideas and engaged in views from across the council chamber, and this budget reflects that. It also reflects the views that have been expressed since the last budget, both before and during the consultation process. And I particularly welcome the input into the budget process from all Cabinet colleagues, officers, the opposition, and of course residents. This has been particularly apparent as we've seen changes to the draft budget due to recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee and, for example, the motion to Council that increased charges for abandoning shopping trolleys. Despite some fears expressed last year that car parking increases would drive down usage, car parking income and usage have increased during the year, justifying the changes made. But where they needed tweaking, we have acted. Last year, external pressures on our budgets gave us little choice but to use increases in car parking charges so that we could continue to offer a wide range of council services. The implementation of the clearer parking bans meant we could also continue to use car parking charges to influence driver behaviour, encouraging greater use of park and ride and less central car parks to reduce congestion and pollution. As a result of representations made about proposals to increase the hourly rates in car parks by 10 pence, we have cancelled that proposal and been able to do this due to higher than expected parking income this year. We don't raise car parking charges because we want to. This is an example of this administration showing itself to be flexible, pragmatic, and above all, when we consult, we listen, and we are prepared to change and evolve, which is the right thing to do. I am determined that we do what is necessary to support our staff, residents, and local organisations in dealing with the challenges that local government reorganisation brings. There are many uncertainties of how we get to where we are heading, but the destination is clear. This is why this budget includes the recommendation of £500,000 that can be drawn down from the Budget Stabilisation Reserve to enable the effective and efficient delivery of works required to deliver the government's devolution and local government reorganisation agenda. It is imperative that we follow through on those projects most important to this district to secure a long-term future for our community, heritage and leisure assets and open spaces. We are setting aside the funds to do this. This budget report has also been amended to reflect that we now have more up-to-date information about levels of government grants that we will be receiving, and these are detailed in the report. In summary, though, only slightly less than expected. The King's Hall in Herne Bay is a key asset that, to be honest, we have not achieved the best out of for this district for many years. With no opportunity available for another round of LUF funding to totally reimagine and update the King's Hall, we need to see what can be done with the funds available to improve its viability as a commercially sound leisure asset. For this reason, we have now put £2 million in the 26-27 capital budget as an estimate to earmark those funds. This is more than double what the previous administration had committed to spend from council funds on the project. We now need to work out exactly what can reasonably be done to the building so that suitable investment can be carried out. I want us to do the best we can for the residents of Herne Bay and visitors to the King's Hall, whilst Canterbury City Council still exists. Our reserves, however, are not unlimited. Once again, we do need to dip into the Budget Stabilisation Reserve to balance the budget. This is not a bottomless pit, but it is there for a rainy day. And when it rains, we do not want it coming in the King's Hall. With local government reorganisation raining down on us, it is time to reassess the budget and our priorities, but under the shelter of a fiscally prudent umbrella. We are still having to deal with the costs rising at a greater level than our income, and efficiencies can only get us so far. We are determined, though, that service levels do not drop, and indeed we are always seeking ways to improve them. I'm pleased that we're now also due to receive the Producer Responsibility Grant. This is a new grant that will in future have requirements attached to it, but for 25-26, it has provided options to realign budgets in the short term. However, it is disappointing we have not been fully compensated by government for the additional employers' national insurance costs, and we must now bear our contribution towards filling the infamous black hole.
You've got 1 minute, Mike.
Thank you. With a shortfall of around £70,000 between our costs and the grant receivable. Other cost increases are unavoidable, like the additional £500,000 required to replace the vehicles for ground maintenance and public convenience services. Keeping our public spaces in a great condition and our toilets well maintained is so essential in a district that relies so much on its visitor economy, and we will not let standards slip in that area. Now, I've been very keen to maximise the opportunity for shaping this budget by working together with all Cabinet portfolio holders, together with officers, together with all group leaders, together with all councillors, and most importantly, though, through meaningful consultation together with our residents. So finally, my initial note said I must end on a quote, and this may be rather niche, but I am reminded of the words of the late Right Honourable Julian Fawcett, MP. We are better together.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. I will now ask for the other group leaders for their responses. And can I remind all that amendments to the budget may be referenced at this point, but will need to be formally put during the budget debate under item 16. So, Councillor Carnac, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, fellow colleagues. Another year goes by and we still find ourselves in unsettled times, locally, nationally and internationally. Inflation remains stubbornly high, and while we have had 3 interest rate cuts since August 2024, it's unclear whether we will benefit from any more in the short term, which means borrowing costs are still high. Economic growth is stagnant, and we can all see the impact of that on our high streets and in rising unemployment. It's been a tough few months for pensioners, farmers, publicans and businesses in general. Today is also 3 years since Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. It is unclear what the immediate future holds on Europe's eastern border for either our continent or Ukraine itself. And this again adds to the sense of uncertainty and economic malaise. In addition, we have the local government reorganisation process taking place, which will see a reshaping of how services are delivered for our residents for many years to come. There will be an important role for each of us to play, ensuring the positive legacy of Canterbury City Council is carried into the new unitary, whatever shape that takes, to provide the best services at best value to our taxpayers and residents. We know that this council remains under enormous pressure to balance the books, and this will be yet another year when around £500,000 may need to be taken from reserves to smooth out financial bumps and maintain service levels. Ultimately, this is unsustainable. There will come a point when we can't just keep dipping into reserves, and we must start putting money back. Difficult choices may need to be made, particularly if we're heading into a recession. While on the subject of reserves, I would also ask that as we move towards being abolished as a district council, that the administration reviews the impact of LGR on the council's reserves, and that as a part of our legacy, we demonstrate to taxpayers that we have looked after their money and it will be used in the future in the best interest of the residents of Canterbury, Herne Bay, Whitstable and the surrounding villages. This council's difficulties balancing the budget have not been helped by the government's failure to give us a 3-year financial settlement, despite having promised this after criticising successive governments for making limp gestures towards local government. To be given a 1-year funding formula has been a disappointment after so much was promised. In truth, all governments of whatever complexion in Westminster have failed to address the 22% decrease in core spending power since 2010. But it must be particularly galling for my Labour colleagues, after having been promised so much in recent years, to find that their government is also putting the screws on local government services. Not only that, but this increase in employers' NI in Labour's first budget puts an extra burden on our council and the district's taxpayers that is both unwarranted and unsustainable. The NI increases are costing councils an extra £637 million for directly employed staff, with an extra £1.3 billion for those with commissioned costs, such as us here in Canterbury with Canenco and Partnership One. This is a rise of over £1.7 billion for all councils in NI contributions. Yet the government, after saying that it would cover councils' direct costs, has only allocated a total of £550 million, leaving a huge funding shortfall for this year, which is falling disproportionately on district councils. As we heard Councillor Sol said, it's 70,000 for our council this year. For the 26-27 financial year, the government has given no guarantee that it will fund the increase in contributions. As a council, we need to ask the government that it sticks to its promise and refunds the cost of NI back to us. Local government is being treated differently to national government yet again. Why aren't the NICs being remitted back to us as they are for government? We need to ensure that they commit to supporting us in 26-27 too. These increases, without full funding from Westminster or a guarantee of a fairer funding formula for district councils such as Canterbury, will, as I said earlier, result in some tough choices for this council in future years. And ultimately, these costs are paid by our tax-paying residents, who end up with poorer services and higher taxes, while having to pay more council tax or higher parking charges or heftier fees out of already taxed income. The increase in employer NI contributions is also about to clobber many businesses across the district. This comes, as we know, at a very difficult time for business. We can see the pinches already being felt along the coast and in our rural communities, as well as in Canterbury, including at our universities. I am therefore very pleased to see that this administration has not put parking charges up this year. You have listened to us and many others across the district who have said enough is enough, including the BID and many businesses who have brought petitions, including the Curzon and Kavanagh cinemas, the Westgate Hall, and the thousands who have added their voices. As I have said for the past year, there needs to be a pause to allow businesses to breathe. Businesses have been struggling since the pandemic. From April, it will be even harder for them. As local representatives, it's important that we always understand the impact we are having on our residents and that we respond where we can. We are therefore grateful that Councillor Ricketts and his colleagues listened to Councillor Jones, past Councillor Howes, and local Herne resident Anthony Seminara, who led last autumn's petition on behalf of the many residents in Herne who called for charges at the School Lane car park to be reduced. This will benefit the village's local businesses and services and make it far more reasonable for residents to use facilities like the church, pub, dentist, shop and community centre. I will also shortly bring an amendment asking for even greater fairness for residents using the district's Band 5 leisure car parks, and will ask members to support that. We welcome the much-needed £2 million investment in the King's Hall from 26-27 and look forward to hearing more on how that will be spent. While we know that the fabric of the hall needs work, we hope that there is sufficient funding to be able to make the auditorium more user-friendly and an opportunity to improve the acoustics so that the King's Hall can live up to its full potential as a top East Kent venue for live performances once again. This is something, along with the repairs to the bandstand, that the Conservative group has put forward as part of the Levelling Up Fund bid that we lost and then proposed in our Seaside motion last year. We are very pleased that the administration has agreed to take this forward. Done properly, this should prove a boost to the economy in Herne Bay, creating jobs and bringing in visitors. However, at the King's Hall, we are disappointed at the huge rise in fees and charges. While understanding much of the reasoning for this, it seems to be a sledgehammer yet again to crack a nut. I recently heard from Herne Bay Swimming Club, a volunteer-led community sports group that has held its annual presentation evening at the King's Hall for the last 3 years. They need a space that can take their 100 members plus family. These are all local children who have worked really hard to achieve their results, something the town and we as councillors should be rightly proud of. When they went to book for the event this year, they were informed that the hire fee had increased from 600 plus VAT to 1200 plus VAT. This is because all subsidised rates have been removed. This has been a harsh pill for many community groups in Herne Bay to swallow. It's come with very little warning. I can't amend this now because it would mean proposing using money from reserves, which I refuse to do for something that won't have a wider benefit for taxpayers across the district. But I will try to work on a proposal that I will bring to Councillor Sole in the autumn that might be able to mitigate for some of these groups that now find themselves homeless. Finally, on the HRA, we are pleased to see that former Councillor Howe's suggestion from last year is in the budget and garage charges will be raised to be more reflective of those in neighbouring districts. Lord Mayor, I would like to thank Nikki and her team for their hard work putting the budget together. It is never easy, and the complexities of local government finance seem to become more Byzantine each year. Let's hope for a fairer funding formula next year. I would also like to acknowledge that Councillor Sole, in putting this budget together, has listened to our concerns, and I am grateful for that collaboration. It can only be to the benefit of all of our residents. Last year, I spoke about the impact this administration's decisions were having on our more vulnerable coastal towns and asked that parking charge changes would be looked at. You have done that. All I ask is that you keep listening and acknowledge the issues that businesses are having and the impact that rises in parking fees and charges do have on our local economy across the Canterbury district, and that we need to be doing more for all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carnac. Can I invite Councillor Andrew Harvey to reply on behalf of the Green Group? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very honoured to give the Green Group's response to the budget proposals. I'd like to echo Councillor Carnac's comments about thanking Nikki Mills and her team for all the hard work in getting to this stage. I'd also like to thank this administration and Cabinet Member for Finance for involving us in the consultation process, as he said, from the start, inviting our input and taking at least some of it on board. So it's been a great process. I'm disappointed, however, that I could stand here and pretty much repeat verbatim what Councillor Turnbull said last year. It's just as relevant a year on. There's little within this budget to help us achieve our target of net zero carbon emissions for 2030. With less than 5 years to go, we really ought to be aiming for a 20% minimum annual reduction in our emissions, particularly as the initial reductions have to be the easiest to achieve, such as our energy use, which is huge across all council operations, and the cost is enormous both financially and environmentally, especially when we're still dependent on burning gas. We know, for instance, that there are many companies who would install solar PV on council building roofs at no cost to ourselves. And this is something we should be pursuing urgently. We could be saving a fair chunk of our £1.2 million annual electricity bill and a £600,000 annual gas bill by a change to renewables, as well as reducing our emissions at the same time. Ignoring our emissions pledge for 2030 will likely result in a huge cost to the council in buying carbon credits or some such fudge as the date draws ever nearer. We are charged on behalf of our council taxpayers with forming a prudent and balanced budget. Unfortunately, I don't believe this meets these criteria. If you look horizontally across all the lines of the budget, we see that for most departments, the figure is simply a cut and paste of last year's budget. Nothing wrong with that, of course, as a starting point. But we then see that any likely increase is taken up with a catch-all figure in the second line of inflation contingency provisions at £2.1 million. We do acknowledge that this figure has at least halved from the £5.4 million in the original consultation document, which we queried. But this figure has still swelled from last year when it was £500,000. So we've got a fourfold increase in the inflation provision when actual inflation is around 3%. So we feel that this 2.1 million ought to be shown in each department to which it pertains, where the increase is going to be relevant. This reason is important to us now as we're actually voting for 2.1 million expenditure with no idea where it might be spent. And I don't feel that makes a balanced budget as it stands. Responses to the consultation show people asking for greater transparency, and we feel this is something truly lacking in parts of this budget. The previous administration have left a huge debt for which we are making enormous interest payments, and which was largely for the purchase of Whitefriars and Riverside, ostensibly going to reduce our council tax payments. Yet we have little or no reporting on the performance of these major assets, other than one line in the budget showing around £8 million income. It's a pitiful return on around £270 million investment. To get a clear picture of the finances for which we are voting, the least we'd like to see is basic profit and loss accounts, average rents and detailed voids information for these publicly owned assets. Who here knew, for example, that in the last quarter of 2023, £400,000 of our money was given by this council to a failing property company that was briefly a tenant of a Riverside unit? They went into administration a few months later. Now, I'm no property expert, but my understanding is that a tenant is supposed to give the landlord money, not vice versa. And when I say it's our money that was given away, what I really mean is it's my money. That amount of £400,000 being the total of every penny I've paid in council tax since moving to Broomfield in 2003. 21 years of my hard-earned money. I'm not sure where it's gone. Is that prudent management of taxpayers' money? Yeah. Park and ride. I noticed you moved over there, Councillor Ricketts. My feelings about this political decision to reopen the site are well known. The budget shows us that the 3 sites are expected to cost us £750,000 each year for the next 3 years. And it's surprising as well to hear Councillor Sol say that the parking income from city centre car parks has gone up. So we're not taking those people away from the city centre. We're adding new cars. Can't be coming from anywhere else, can they? So let's be clear. This is not some green bus-led strategy. It's a financial disaster that only benefits a few car users, adds carbon emissions, congestion and air pollution. 72 diesel buses a day added to the already congested A28. By contrast, since this administration reopened Starry Park and Ride, frequency of buses from my house in Broomfield have reduced by half. At the same time, the fares have gone up by half. This administration needs to do much more to ensure bus travel is available for all our residents so they can leave their cars at home. Previous administration have left us a legacy of huge debt. We ask that this administration raise its aspirations for leaving a legacy that might benefit our planet and our residents. But we can't support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Mike Soul, do you like to respond? You've got 10 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I won't take the full 10 minutes. I'll try and leave you a short bit. First of all, thank you to Councillor Carnac and Councillor Harvey for their comments from the Conservative and Green groups. I've tried to note down many of the things they've said, and I'll respond to those that I can now. Any that I can't respond to, perhaps because they're too technical, I don't have the information at hand. Please come to me afterwards. As I say, my door is always open. It couldn't be more open if I blew the bloody doors off it. So first of all, Park and Ride. Our strategy for Park and Ride is working. Since opening it, we have seen continued growth and usage in that area. And in this budget, we set out details of annual passes and incentives for businesses to get their staff on Park and Ride. And that will further increase usage and reduce congestion and pollution. And I can tell you also that we're continuing to have conversations with Stagecoach about what we can do to change the contract on sizes of buses as well. And when we have good news on that, we can hopefully share it in the future. So Park and Ride is the way forward. And if parking income's going up in the city because people choose to pay higher car parking charges than some of the lower band car parks, well, that's up to them. We give them the choice. But we're quite happy to use that parking income where we can to make sure that other alternatives are available. On our property income, the budget report can't contain details of every single property, and it wouldn't even be commercially right for all of that information to be there. But I am delighted that the Riverside complex will now be fully occupied. And we may have inherited that as a regeneration project, but it's our responsibility to maximise the income from it and continue to make that an attractive place for eating and leisure activities. And I'm determined that we do this. Coming on to Councillor Carnac's point on reserves, yes, of course, we do need to look at our reserves in light of local government reorganisation. We effectively need to know, how we're going to use that, make sure that it's properly used over the next 3 or 4 years. And I agree that we need to continue to lobby government for more funding. Local government has been starved of resources by governments of all colours, and we need more to enable us to do the work that we need to do. On the King's Hall, fees and charges there, I look forward to a conversation with Councillor Carnac during the year on that. And of course, we're always free to look at what we're doing with charges during the year. If, you know, we can always reduce things if we need to, if suddenly they completely dried up and nobody was booking it. So we will do that. So I think that's really all I can respond to now. If there's anything I haven't covered that was raised, please do come back to me.
Thank you, Councillor Mike Soul. So we're on to item on the agenda 6. So I would like to invite the Deputy Leader to propose the recommendations under item 6A in the agenda and the Leader to second. So thank you.
Okay, Lord Mayor, if we are ready.
All good?
Yep, we're all dried up.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose the recommendations under item 6A in the agenda, and that is that one, that funds are added to the capital programme funded through borrowing to purchase approximately 20 units of temporary accommodation, which is option 1, and 2, the delegation is given to the relevant director or directors in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Housing and Cabinet Member for Finance to purchase up to a further 10 additional units should the need and opportunity arise, and subject to the funding model being financially viable.
Thank you, Councillor Soul. These items and recommendations can be debated and amended. Have we got any?
I'll second that, Lord Mayor, by the way.
Oh,
Second that.
yeah.
Sorry about that. Second.
Sorry about that. Any debate or? No, I can't see anybody. So we need to go to a recorded vote. Andrea?
So that has been carried unanimously.
Thank you, Andrea. So we go on to B, recommendation from Cabinet, 10th of February. So I would like to invite the Deputy Leader to propose the recommendation under item 6B in the agenda and the Leader to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to propose that the pay policy statement for 25-26 is adopted.
I can second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Have we got any debate? No. Go to the recorded vote.
And that's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you, Andrea. And can I now invite the Deputy Leader to propose the recommendation under item 6C in the agenda and the leader to second.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I propose that Council approves the formal resolution set out in Appendix B to set the council tax for 25-26, and that if any of the precepting authorities change their precept figures before Council on 24th of February, that's today, the Director of Finance and Procurement be authorised to present to Council a revised resolution.
I formally second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Nobody. So, recorded vote.
And that's carried unanimously.
Thank you. So we go on to item the agenda, item D. So I'd like to invite the Deputy Leader to propose the recommendation as set out in the agenda, point 6D, items A to J, and the Leader to second.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to propose the recommendations as set out in the agenda at points 6D, items A to J, and I've been informed I don't need to read them all out, which is good news.
Thank you. Councillor Carnac?
Yeah, I'll second that first, Lord Mayor.
Oh,
Thank you. And I'm really pleased we don't have to read them out. Thank you.
Councillor Carnac?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment, please, on parking charges as part of 6D.
Have we got a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Yep.
Okay. I'd like to move that the parking charges on Saturdays, Sundays and bank holidays in Band 5 car parks are set at £1.60 per day, which is the same rate as is being proposed for Monday to Fridays from April the 1st to September the 30th. And in the School Lane car park in Herne, that would be all year round, not seasonal. This would amount to about £8,000, and it would be paid by taking 8,000 from the parking marketing initiatives budget of 10,000. And I would also move that the incentive pot will be replaced should parking income exceed expectation across the district. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. We're now open for debate. Councillor Sol. Councillor Ricketts, yes, afterwards. Okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, it was, of course, the Conservatives that introduced a weekend premium rate at small leisure car parks. But having had the opportunity to discuss this proposal last week, which builds on the proposals to already move School Lane in Herne to Band 5, I'm pleased to say the administration accept this amendment. We remain committed to implement parking initiatives during the year, especially to encourage park and ride. So whilst it is necessary to earmark funding for this amendment from the parking incentives budget, we're determined to replace those funds during the year should parking income exceed expectations. Now, even a straightforward amendment like this can take time to consider and agree, particularly as I was aware of conversations that had already taken place about how the incentive budget may have been planned to have been used. But I'm very pleased, though, that we've been able to support it, helping drive down the costs of weekend parking in 8 car parks. And those car parks are Faversham Road in Seasalter, Tankerton Road, and then in Herne Bay, Swellcliffe Avenue, Hampton Pier, the Culver Drive, Ocean View, Bishopstone Lane, and then finally School Lane in Herne. Now, with this change and the introduction of the residence rate, 3 hours free parking for blue badge holders in more bays than ever, and low-cost park and ride, this council continues to offer reductions in car parking costs in many places across the district.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. Councillor Ricketts?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for that brief summary, Councillor Brady. And thank you, Councillor Carnac. I was really pleased to hear from Mike that you'd put forward something on parking, so it gave me a bit of work to do. But also really pleased to hear that it's continued the work of Councillor Howes, much missed in this chamber, in being very consultative with us on these issues and sensible. I think it's a sensible idea. It actually fits very, very nicely, and I'm glad to see that you get what we're trying to do with the principle of simplifying, making it easy for people to understand, and wherever possible, trying to reduce the impact, particularly on residents, because this is something that will help residents as well as visitors. It's the residents that use those car parks on a regular basis, and them having to pay a higher price at weekends and during the week. It's confusing, it's unnecessary, and I suspect those who park there 7 days a week probably feel quite annoyed on the weekends that they're paying a little bit extra if they're going to walk the dogs. Dogs don't care if they're paying extra on a Saturday or a Sunday; they still want to be taken out. I think I was really pleased that we worked at it. And as both Councillor Carnac and Councillor Sol alluded, this is a very important budget, this incentives pot. This pays for things like free parking around Christmas periods. It's something that we wanted to expand. And I think in the initial parking budget, we wanted to set that at close to £30,000. It is unfortunately the cherry that always gets picked when it comes to parking changes, which doesn't allow us the freedom to do stuff. However, given that the way that car parks performed this year, given that success, and hopefully that the economic boom in the area is continuing, that car parking revenue will increase this year, we'll be able to top that pot up and be able to achieve whatever we do. So I am happy to agree to this amendment and I'll probably vote for it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Councillor Chris Cornell.
It's unusual during an election period to hear a politician not say that their political party has a monopoly on good ideas, but this is a good idea. Thank you for bringing it, Rachel. In fact, it ties in with, and Rob, it ties in with some of the conversations the Visit Canterbury Consortium have been having about trying to better link itineraries and walking routes in the information which we provide, because we're very aware that people visit our coastal towns, but more importantly, they often visit the coast. And so the more ways in which we can identify kind of new access points to that reduces congestion in our more urban areas and allows you to kind of like stride out from Tankerton or Bishopston rather than necessarily kind of like Whitstable or Herne Bay to enjoy our coast. So I will be supporting the amendment. I think it's a fiscally prudent and a very sensible way to proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Cornell. Councillor Carnac, you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, we may even end up making more income at the £1.60 at the weekend than the £3.20, which has been roundly disliked. Full stop, these parking charges are disliked. So I'm not sure that we're going to get a huge amount of kudos for changing it. But I think hopefully it goes to show our local residents right across the coast that we're doing something. As we know, these increases, these parking charges when they've come in have been absolutely hated from Sea Salter right the way across to Reculver Drive and Bishopston, mainly because they've driven people to park on residential roads and not in the car park. So I am very much hoping that particularly on, say, Reculver Drive, that £1.60 a day is tremendous good value to actually have a day on the beach at Herne Bay. And there's no reason then for visitors to block up residents' roads by parking all over the place. And I think one thing will be later this year that we can look at the annual parking review and see whether some more on-street restrictions would work. If we're, encouraging people into those car parks. The other thing that's been really disliked about these parking charges is that they're on Ringo, and in most of these places there's a terrible telephone signal. This flat rate means that everyone can pay before they go. If they're going for the day, they know what they're paying, they can do that. So hopefully it gets around those issues that we faced. And yes, we did bring this in, and no, our residents have never liked it. Partly we had to bring it in. It was the pandemic, and things came in. But I think we would all hope to that this is a really good move. We know that we need to charge something for these car parks because they need maintaining, and the car parks are now at a far higher standard in these areas than they were. So thank you. I'm pleased that this amendment has been accepted. And I know the Anthony Seminara, who brought the petition last week in Herne, and all those petitioners will be particularly grateful because this is something that they asked for in the parking consultation earlier this year, late last year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Carnac. Councillor Jones, did you want to reply?
Well, I don't think I've got anything to add. It's just good news. Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Sowell and Councillor Ricketts again for listening to Councillor Carnac's proposal, and you've gone with the amendment, which is great. Will just benefit so many people across the district, and I agree. I think you'll probably find we take more money over the weekends than you would on the £3 rate, to be quite fair. So yeah, I welcome it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can now go to vote on the amendment. Yeah. I'm not going to vote this time. Abstain this time.
And that has carried with 32 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Now we can go on to the substantive motion and, well, is there anybody else that's going to put an amendment? Councillor Watkins?
Thanks, all, Mayor. I did want to say a few words. So, Mike, I don't have to stand up anymore, but note what I will, because Mike, I enjoyed aspects of your speech, and it is pertinent to stand up because you'll notice I'm wearing blue and yellow, and you think this is because I'm going to be 100% congratulating you for this budget, but from your perspective, alas, it's actually because they are the national colours of Ukraine, and a number of us, and it was really good to see a number of us on the Walk for Ukraine event a couple of hours ago in Canterbury, and thanks, Connie. I know you're a very effective conduit between the Ukrainian community we now have here and this council. It was good to be there on what is obviously a desperately difficult situation, and we mark the 3-year anniversary of Putin's illegal invasion of that country. But back to the budget, just 3 points I would like to add, and I'll continue standing so you can see my yellow trousers some more. I think the first thing is there's a lot of bonhomie about these parking changes, and I think this is quite right. We're opposition, but we are opposition, and it's welcome that people who've supported that amendment. But just the feeling on the ground with residents, not just in Herne Bay, but more broadly, is, and we must remember, last year we whacked up for the premium car parks the rates hugely, doubling. So some people do feel this is really like the crumbs on the table that we are moving around here. So I just want to remind you, as you think about future budgets, that we had a really big hit, and freezing it this year is great, but 10p doesn't make a huge difference to a lot of traders who rely on trade from people who have to drive to the shops when they might have been hit by £1 an hour last year. And bigger picture, I am, like you, nervous about us running down reserves more. Look, the world is so uncertain, and coming back to what we were saying about Ukraine, has there ever been a less predictable future ahead of us? We could easily have an action which put the UK back in recession again. Nothing to do necessarily with our country, a global event, and you all know what those could be. And that would mean that once again we would see our parking revenues drop, our other costs rise, and we will be struggling again. So I really encourage you to think hard about rebuilding that reserve as quickly as you can. And it wouldn't be a Dan Watkins speech without finishing on Park and Ride. I really want to emphasise what Mike said earlier. It really does not feel like it's succeeding. It's like a football manager who says, we used to lose 5-0, now we're only losing 4-0, success. We are at such a low point of usage. The buses are still almost entirely empty when you see them. It's bad for the budget and it's bad environmentally. And we're talking about reserves being so precious with an uncertain future ahead. I really think that vanity project needs to be re-examined next year, because that is hundreds of thousands of pounds every year that we're taking essentially out of reserves in order to fund. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Anybody else? Councillor Ricketts? Why not?
Thank you. It's delightful to see the Watkins and Harvey double act back together again. It's and hopefully there'll be a Netflix special in the offing at some point. Yeah, vanity project's an interesting one. I mean, who's vanity? I mean, it's not the pleasant thing being the face of Park and Ride. I don't particularly enjoy it, but it's still the right thing to do. I think to initially Councillor Harvey's point, if I could pick some detail out of it, there was some in there somewhere. The parking acts are up pretty much across the board. Revenue is up across the board. Things I was told a year ago wouldn't happen, but have. But if you look at the detail, again, something I'm sure you haven't done, you'll see that isn't necessarily a case that city centre car parks are up. Parking acts are up in all Park and Rides. The level of usage in all three car parks is up. Revenue is up in all three car parks. Revenue is up in the more expensive car parks, but parking acts are down. So that's what happens, you see, with money sometimes. If you charge more but fewer people, you can still make more money. It doesn't mean that there's more people there. So if the price is higher but there are fewer people, it's actually... I'll run you through it later if you like. But what we can see is actually fewer people parking in the very expensive car parks, more people parking in the cheaper car parks. There is evidence of what we were trying to do working. And it will take time. And I understand that, Councillor Watkins, it doesn't feel successful. I agree, it doesn't feel successful. I don't feel very successful a lot of the time when I'm talking about it. And you're always there to help me with that feeling. And I appreciate it. It's comforting. But it will take time, and we are still moving in the right direction. We started from a football metaphor point of view with a 10-point deficit. You know, we were Everton, Nottingham Forest. That's where we found ourselves. But we're working hard with the resources we were left with. We don't have a massive transfer. I'm going to stop the metaphor now. We don't have a huge amount to work with on this, but the actions that we're taking, and it remains the fact that Park and Ride will be the future of a mixed transport model. That's the direction we have to go in. In the short term, it will look like it's not the thing to do. In the long term, those parks will be essential, as we'll be adding more to the district as well. So keep with it, stay with the course, and keep reminding me that you're there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Anybody else on this? No. So then we will go on the motion that's been amended. Substantive motion. And we will have a recorded vote. Thank you, Andrea.
So that is carried, 30 in favour and 3 against.
What was the vote? Oh, I know that Andrea usually says about the... Pardon? Yeah, Andrew usually does, but yeah. Go on. I'll let you do it.
Okay, so that was carried. 30 in favour and 3 against.
Thank you, Andrea. And now can I, we're on item E, like to invite the Deputy Leader to propose the recommendation under 6C in the agenda and the Leader to second.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would propose that Council resolves to approve the draft housing revenue and capital budget for 25-26 set out in the appendices A to C.
Please to second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody? No, we go to a recorded vote then. Those lights are annoying.
And that's carried unanimously.
Thank you, Andrea. I think these lights are flickering and it's really annoying. Oh. Yeah. Energy. Now we go to F. I would like to invite the Deputy Leader to propose the recommendation set out on under 6F in the agenda and the Leader to second.
Thank you. I'd like to propose that A, that the attached Treasury Management Strategy, including the minimum revenue provision policy for 25-26, be approved. B, that the attached capital strategy for 25-26 be approved. And C, that the attached investment strategy for 25-26 be approved.
Thank you.
Formally second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sol and Councillor Baldock. Nobody? That's good. So we go to a recorded vote.
And that is carried with 31 in favour and 2 abstaining.
Thank you, Andrea. And we're now on G. We now have the recommendations from Cabinet in relation to the Stour Valley PSPO. I would like to invite the Leader to propose the recommendation set under item 6G in the agenda and the Deputy Leader to second.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is item 6G. So first is the requirements 1, 3, 4, 7 and 11, table 2.1 are retained in the new PSPO with 3 and 4 being merged. Point 2, the requirements 2, 5 and 6, table 2.2 are retained in the new PSPO with clearly defined and less subjective wording. 3, that requirements 8, 9 and 10, table 2.2, are merged in the new PSPO as a 7 single requirement for wording amendments. So as a 7 single word requirement for wording amendments retaining the fundamental elements of each. So it's clarification really of what we're doing there. And point 4, the requirement 12, table 2.2 again, is retained in the PSPO with wording amended to clarify what authorised person means. So those are the amendments. I seek a seconder for that.
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Smith. Naomi.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just want to, first of all, a point of clarification, because I sat in overview on this, and when I sat in overview, it was Stour Valley and Gorrel Valley were for this PSPO, and it's not, that's not clarified here. Is it just for Stour Valley, this? Yeah, but it doesn't say that.
Can
That was
we
it.
ask for clarification? Is anybody? Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We'll just check the cabinet.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the cabinet report, it was taken from the cabinet report, so I hope that answers your clarification, Naomi. And nobody else? We go to recorded vote.
And that's carried with 32 in favour and 1 abstaining.
Thank you, Andrea. Item 7. And next we have the recommendations from the Audit Committee in relation to the RIPA policy. I would like to invite Councillor Alistair Brady to propose the recommendations in item 7A in the agenda. And I think Councillor Dan Smith to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now it's the part of the evening that everybody has been really looking forward to. 7A, recommendation for the Audit Committee. From the 22nd of January concerning the regulation of investigatory powers 2000. A, to endorse the attached updated RIPA policy document so that it can be adopted by the council, and B, to receive and note the annual report. I need to note and make a clarification that this was endorsed by the audit committee, so we're inviting full council to adopt and note it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith? Dan Smith, yep.
Seconded. Sorry, pressing the wrong button.
Thank you. Anybody? Oh, we go to a recorded vote then.
And that's carried unanimously, Lord Mayor.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. And councillor questions. So we have 4 questions for the meeting. There is an overall time limit of 30 minutes for all councillor questions. Each questioner will have 1 minute to put their question and 3 minutes allowed for the response. Each questioner will also be allowed to ask 1 supplementary question, which the responder to the original question may answer. No other contribution is allowed. So can I invite Councillor Turnbull to put her first question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Given the pressure on housing locally, we're keen that as much as possible is done to ensure that existing homes are available for rent or to buy by local people. Please can you tell us how many homes are currently listed as empty and what measures the council is able to take to identify them and to bring them back into use? Thank you.
Councillor Pip Hazelton to answer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And in the spirit of this meeting so far, can I say thank you to Claire for the question? I'm sure with councillors across the chamber, I want to see the number of empty homes reduced to as low a number as possible. And we recognise that empty homes negatively impact communities and neighbourhoods, that bringing empty homes back into use can boost housing supply and that it builds the low carbon economy, as it's recognised that at least half the carbon footprint of homes is in construction. And I'm therefore pleased to support the National Empty Homes Week that will run from March the 3rd to the 9th. And I've already asked officers to engage with this campaign. This area of work is covered by the private sector housing team, which is small and very busy. And empty homes is just one, albeit important, part of this remit. So to the figures, Claire. Unoccupied and unfurnished properties, up to 12 months, there are 1,231. Between 1 and 5 years, there's a 100% premium charge, and there are 415 of those. Between 5 and 10 years, where there's a 200 council tax premium charge, there are 62. And over 10 years, there are only 12 properties currently in that, and they attract a 300% council tax premium. So the total is 1,720. And so what the private sector housing team does is to seek to identify the property owners, make inquiries about their plans, highlight any potential risks and issues, signpost to other help and funding support where available, and then track the property periodically. Often owners choose to keep the property empty for a number of personal reasons, or probate applies. And in these cases, unless there are significant issues and concerns which impact the community, there is little action the council can take. There's always a balance between the impact on community, resources, and whether it's in the public interest. The process of engaging and negotiating with owners to bring a property back into use is not a quick one. If I can just give a quick case study, we've had some wins in the last year. For example, a property which was brought to our attention in July of 24. We carried out initial investigation work and identified the owners and made contact. They were open to our approach and keen to hear more regarding the interest-free loan options via the No Use Empty KCC scheme. We facilitated an on-site meeting and KCC provided the application pack. And in November 24, a loan of £25,000 was issued to the owners. And we also assisted by providing a letter from the council tax, which allowed the owners to access lower VAT options with contractors. The outcome is that it will be refurbished and sold by the owners in the very near future. I am aware that some councils have chosen to
Councillor
employ...
Hazelton, I think you've
Okay,
3 minutes.
I'll stop there then. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a supplementary question, Councillor Turnbull?
No, I didn't. Thank you very much for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you. We now go on to the next question, which is Councillor Watkins put his question.
Not on Park and Ride. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Last year, we were assured by the administration that we would see better governance of Canenco to ensure it meets residents' priorities, i.e. the swift and efficient collection of household bins and public litter. Yet we still do not have robust service standards in place. This was acceptable when we were first getting started with Canenco, and much was in flux. That is not acceptable now, many years later. We're also worried about the widening remit of the Cabinet Company Subcommittee and the potential dilution of scrutiny over Canenco as a result. The conversation around LATCO governance seems at risk of being sidelined at a time when we should be ensuring the fundamentals are in place ahead of local government reform. Linked to this, we're still waiting a suite of KPIs since the new corporate plan was passed. I'm not sure how anything can be measured against the Sustainable Development Goals without being translated into specific KPIs for this council and Canenco. As such, I would like to know why there is so much resistance to prioritising this Canenco governance task when it is the key council service which all residents depend on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Can I invite Councillor Charlotte Cornell?
Thank you, Dan. I won't repeat verbatim what I said at the last council meeting, but we did say I did say in that answer then, which was to an extremely similar question as you've just posed now, that the formal contract is still being finalised. And the company is working to a clear annual performance framework, which is monitored and extremely measurable. This framework is reported, as you noted, to the Council's Advisory Committee, which indeed has taken on further responsibilities, and the company's overall performance is overseen by the Council's Scrutiny Committee, at least on an annual basis. But of course, the terms of that are set by the Scrutiny Committee. The Advisory Committee is now overseeing 3 council companies, as you rightly say, and we will, of course, ensure that there's adequate time to fully consider and review the reports sent to that committee. Scrutiny took the decision to change how their meetings operate and the business that they consider, and I, as the portfolio holder, have no business interfering in how Scrutiny choose to conduct their business. This is a choice they've made. It's a really interesting and deep dive platform, and I'm looking forward to the June meeting when Caneco performance will be scrutinised by the committee. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that works and the deep dives and the questions that are posed therein. This enables the Scrutiny Committee to do deeper dives into services, and I hope that works well. They have a new cycle of meeting themes, and I believe it's June that the Caneco services are being scrutinised. In addition, the performance of Caneco is reported to Cabinet at least twice annually. Caneco's service delivery plan, which is our SDP for 2025 and 2026, will be presented to the company's advisory committee on the 13th of March. I will be at that meeting. Any recommendations made to Cabinet will be considered when they're invited to approve the plan at the end of March. Just as a final note, the Council does provide data to the National Waste Data Flow, which captures national data, and that's publicly available. So I would refute the point made that the oversight is insufficient. I think it's done by 4 different bodies on a regular basis. There's plenty of opportunity to pose questions. And as I discussed last time, the idea of tight KPIs can sometimes lead to a rigidity that doesn't allow us to flex to meet the needs of our residents. So there can be limitations if KPIs are set too tightly. We've seen incidents in the past 18 months where we have had to flex, and we've done that really well with the monitoring that we have.
Thank you, Councillor Carnac. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Watkins?
Yes, I mean, I actually think you can have KPIs and you can have flexibility, so I would refute your refute. But I think my question would be, given I haven't received anything since I last asked a similar, although not completely identical question, on this question, can I ask that every element which I've raised today, the KPIs and the service standard, as per that email, those documents are sent to me so I can review them. Thank you.
Would you like to come back, Councillor Carnac?
Yes, and I'm looking forward to your question on parking at the next full council.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Andrew Harvey to put their first question? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Dan Watkins, for the warm-up. Starry Park and Ride, I think it's been done to death tonight. So my question is, bearing in mind the looming deadline for the council to be carbon neutral and our no single-use plastic policy, can I ask why all food and drink in the King's Hall Foyer Cafe is served on disposable tableware?
Councillor Mel Dawkins.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor Harvey, for your question again. It's a bit deja vu. I'm not sure if that is a Netflix film coming soon. But yeah, so your question about single-use plastics in the Guildhall in October and your South Quay Shed question in January on this same topic, I'm able to give you the same answer, but I will change it a little bit. Can you hear okay? Can you hear? Yeah. Okay, good. At both King's Hall and South Quay Shed, we are committed to sustainability and minimising our environmental impact by implementing a range of eco-friendly products that help reduce waste and support green practices. They now provide reusable cups at both venues. These cups are durable, washable, and UKCA and CUK conformity assessed, ensuring they meet safety standards, and their shatter-resistant nature is particularly beneficial for both Kings Hall and the South Key Sheds, enhancing customer safety. So I've got some examples here. You could take them home if you want. Oh, you've got... No, it's not the same. We're talking about hardware, but yeah, pass them around. Pass them around. Chantal. In addition, for hot drinks, we offer VeggieWare double wall coffee cups, which are made from paper and lined with plant-based PLA. And if you didn't know what that means, that's polylactic acid. And the complement the cups, we use CPLA, crystallized polylactic acid coffee cup lids, which are also made from renewable plant-based materials and are compostable. These cups require industrial composting, which I mentioned before, and I think Councillor Cornell at the last meeting, and there's no local facility for that, so they currently go to residual waste and an incinerator. So when there's a local facility, they will go to the composting site, but they need to be an industrial one. Some of the waste sector prefer plant-based materials over conventional plastics, as they give off fewer toxic gases. Both the Kings Hall and the South Key Shed bar products are bought in glass bottles, cans, aluminium barrels or cardboard boxes, all of which you should know are recycled. And we strongly encourage all tenants to do the above. The only single-use plastic you will now find at the bars and venues in the form of crisp or chocolate wrappers, and we are actively looking for alternative products. However, with the introduction of the extended producer responsibility, which we heard about tonight, it puts the onus on the producer to package their products sustainable, and the end of life taken into account. And so I'm hoping we should see a significant change in the way we receive goods, which is a really great initiative. So looking forward to that. Finally, for your information, both venues hold a small historic stock of disposable cups, which will not be replaced when they are used. Instead of being just thrown away, we will use them, but then they won't be replaced anymore. Hopefully that answers your question, or some of it, and you won't ask it again.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. It wasn't really the point of the question was why in the cafe they serve everything in a disposable cup, even when you're sitting there having your drink. You know, it can be in China. But that's not my supplementary question. Had a drink in the South Key Shed the other day. It doesn't feel like polycarbonate, so hopefully that will be changed soon, and I'll take your assurances on board. I did check on Amazon, and you can get them delivered tomorrow, 50 quid for 100. So my supplementary question is, when will they be changed at South Key Shed?
Councillor Dawkins, would you like to come back?
The cups in that cafe are just are renewable cups, so we can talk about that. I can come down and go through it with you as well. Just to let you know, there's a review of the single-use plastic policy coming up, and I will really, if you want to get involved in that, I'll really make sure that I can make sure that your comments and concerns are fed through into that. Yeah, so get in touch. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Dawkins. As Councillor Ian Stockley has given his apologies for tonight's meeting, can I invite Councillor Jeanette Stockley to put his first question?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Ian's question is the council leader satisfied with the speed at which planning decisions are being made in this council when there are many delayed that are outside of the Stodmarsh water quality issue? Thank you.
Can I invite Councillor Dixie to respond?
Thank you, Jeanette, for asking Ian's question for him. First of all, the Stodmarsh issue, which Ian raises in his question, is, as we all know, a nightmare, and I'll come back to that in a couple of minutes. For those applications which are not affected by Stodmarsh, our performance has been very good. As Pat will confirm, the quarterly stats show that over the past 4 years, in 8 out of 16 quarters, 100% of major planning applications were decided within the statutory time, or in an extension of that time agreed with the applicant. The picture for non-major planning applications over the past 4 years has also been very good. And we have consistently decided more than 80% of applications within time. The exception, of course, was during the cyber attack. And during January and September last year, our performance was badly affected by the loss of IT systems. But the last quarter of last year, things have recovered and we're back to over 74% compared with the government's target of 70%. What else can I say on that? I think that's about all I can say on that. On Stodmarsh, as we know, the havoc that's caused with our ability to deliver housing in the district over the last 4 years. And this has resulted in us falling into presumption, as I think we all know. In recent months, however, we have made significant progress in addressing this issue. In particular, the establishment of a joint venture company called the Store Environmental Credits Limited, or SEC, and you'll be hearing, I think, more about that over the next 2 or 3 years, which we set up with Ashford Borough Council, and which will access a £9.8 million of grant that we have from the government on catchment mitigation schemes. And just a note of interest, SEC are in the process now of recruiting a managing director. So watch this space.
Thank you, Councillor Dixie. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Stockley?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. From Ian again. Is it reasonable for the Planning Committee to be held accountable to the public as a decision-making body when the authority is in presumption?
Would you like to come back, Councillor Dixie?
Is it reasonable for the Planning Committee to be held accountable to the public as a decision-making body when the authority is in presumption?
Put your microphone on, please.
Yeah. The leader's just commented that it's the only statutory body we've got. So, but I think it's an interesting point. And I'm not sure what answer you might have on that. Yeah.
Apart from, is there any point in having a planning committee? Thank you very much. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Jeanette Stockley. Yeah. So item 9, we have no notices of motion at this meeting. So I'd like to invite the leader to propose and the deputy leader to second approval of the minutes of the full council meeting of 9th of January. Recorded vote is needed.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can propose for adoption, commission adoption, the minutes of the council meeting for Thursday, the 9th of January 2025, pages 9 to 22.
Seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. No questions? We go to a recorded vote.
And that's carried unanimously, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Andrea. Item 11, I'd like to invite the leader to propose and the deputy leader to second approval of the changes to memberships of committees and subcommittees as listed on page 23.
Thank you. If it's okay, I just request that we support those changes. And I look for a seconder.
Seconded.
And we can vote on general assent this time. Thank you. Item 12, we're doing very well, you know. The programme of meetings for the next council year is set out in the agenda on pages 24 to 25. A final version will be presented at the annual meeting, but approval of the draft tonight allows everyone to start planning their diaries for next year. So I'd like to invite the leader to propose and the deputy leader to second the adoption of programme of meetings for 25-26.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Definitely propose that, and we'll get the first 6 months in our diary, shall we? So it is okay. Done it already. Excellent. Thank you. Seconding, please, sir.
Seconded.
And we can general assent. All good. Thank you. There are no updates on the previous motions for this meeting, and so the Joint Chief Executive would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. All right.
Don't be nervous, your first time.
My first time, thank you. The minutes will be dealt with in turn. The Lord Mayor will invite the relevant chair to propose the receipt and adoption of the minutes and then ask for a seconder for the proposal. Councillors are permitted to debate the minutes if they wish, but they cannot be amended. The only possible action if there is disagreement on the accuracy of the minutes is for them to be sent back to the relevant committee. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Susie. So we'll start with Audit Committee. Do we have a...
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the now famous Audit Committee meeting dated 22nd of January 2025. Do I have a seconder, please?
Seconded to the esteemed chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, Dan Smith. General assent. Yep. And then the Cabinet on Monday, the 10th of February, Councillor Baldock. That's in the supplement.
Yeah, I submit for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Cabinet meeting on Monday, the 10th of February 2025, and which is in supplement to your agenda.
We have a seconder.
Seconded.
Thank you. General assent. Thank you very much. Governance Committee, Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I submit for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Governance Committee held on Wednesday, 18th of December 2024, pages 32 to 34.
We have a seconder.
I'll second it. I wasn't there, but if no one else is coming forward.
Who was there then?
Famous, the Governance Committee. It's a long time ago, wasn't it?
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Carnac. General assent. And can I ask the licensing subcommittee, Councillor Bland?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the licensing subcommittee dated Wednesday, the 4th of December 2024, pages 35 to 41. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Yep, we have a seconder. And general assent? Thank you. Overview Committee, Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Overview Committee held on Thursday, the 16th of January 2025, pages 42 to 45, and on Thursday, the 23rd of January 2025, page 46 to 52. Do I see a seconder, please?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. General Assembly? Thank you. Planning Committee, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption of the minutes of the Planning Committee on Tuesday, the 7th of January, pages 53 to 57. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And noted that the 4th of February was cancelled. So, Standards Committee, no, did we have a General Assembly? Thank you. Standards Committee, Councillor Buckman.
I move for receipt and adoption of the minutes of the Standards Committee on the 16th of December on pages 58 to 60.
Seconder? Thanks.
I second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. General Assembly? Yep. And the Whitstable Harbour Board, Councillor Chris Cornell.
Lord Mayor, I present for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Whitstable Harbour Board due Friday, the 10th of January, pages 61 to 64. Can I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dixie. General Assembly? Thank you very much. You can put your hand down now, Alistair Brady. I noticed 2 hands went up earlier, but item 15, there are no urgent decisions to bring before this meeting. And item 16, any other urgent business to be dealt with on the night. There is no other urgent business. So I think it's really been a good meeting and very, very well received this evening. And there's no other urgent business. Thank you all for coming. And now the meeting is closed. We don't have to have another one next week or Thursday.
Wednesday.
Yeah. Wow.